smart content allows us to choose who's going to see the different versions of the content, whereas A/B testing allows us to do a little bit less of a personal experience and rather do some testing to see what works. So you may want to start with A/B testing, and then once you've seen the different versions, actually move into a smart version of that content. So what's A/B testing? Well, often known as split testing, and it can be A/B testing, but it can also be ABC testing. And then HubSpot allows you adaptive testing, which allows up to 5 versions of the tests. And it's a randomized experimentation process wherein 2 or more versions of a web page, email, etc., are shown to different segments of website visitors at the same time. So one, splitting them out to determine which version has maximum impact. So it eliminates the guesswork out of website optimization, out of email optimization, and allows you to make data-backed decisions. So some of the common examples of where you would use A/B testing would be to test if 2 different headlines or messages, which one would perform better when you're sending out an email. So you may read your email and think, well, I really think the headline, what is A/B testing, would work really well. And someone else in the team may say, I think the fundamentals of A/B testing would be a better headline. Well, why argue about it? And why wonder whether which one will work better? Why don't you do an A/B test and check? So how it works is that essentially the A version of your A/B test is going to be your default. And that is and then the B has a change to it and is your second version. So when you're setting up a A/B test in HubSpot, like this. So now you've built out your email and you create an A/B test. You would give the second email a name. So new email A, new email B, whatever it is that you want to call that second name, second one. And then you would determine what the distribution is. Now, thinking about the fact that if you're going to send this email out to more than 1,000 people, you can start to lower this percentage over here. But the standard test is set up at 50% of users get the email. So 25% A, B, and then the rest, the last 50% gets the winning version. You can make these numbers higher if you think that your test is going to be that you want to run your test for longer. But the standard is set at 25, 25, 50. You can play around with that. Then you need to determine which metric you are tracking. So the options are open rates, click rates, and click-through rates for emails. And that depends on what you're actually going to test. If you're testing the subject line, you would use open rates. If you're testing the content, you would use click or click-through rates, because the subject line is driven, the open rates is largely driven by subject line from name, preview text, and from address. So you can test that out. One example of an A/B test that could be useful is to show your client that sending an email from marketing at versus sending it from name at works, which one works better in their industry, because many clients want to send their marketing emails from a marketing email address. Actually showing them using some A/B tests that using a person's name is more effective could be a good way to drive them to actually use that strategy. The next thing you would do is choose your test duration. Now, the longer you leave your test to run up to a certain point, the better your data will be. Because as you maybe know when you send out an email that there's usually a spike when you send out your email, and then there's usually spikes later on as well, where so if you send it at 2 in the afternoon, you may get people opening in the evening, opening the next morning. And so if you really want to test your email properly, something like 24 hours is a good kind of amount of time to give you the chance to really let people have a chance and have a look and choose between the two and have the best version of success. You can go shorter, but just think about if you're sending it out at 2 in the afternoon and you're running your test for 4 hours, the second one's going to go out at 6 o'clock, which seems like that might not work that well. So also think about when the second test is going to go out. So maybe plan that and say, okay, I wanted to send in 20 hours. So it'll go 2 o'clock today and at 10 o'clock tomorrow. And then you choose your fallback version. So it defaults to version A, but you can say, actually, I want version B to be the default. So if it cannot come up with a winner between the two, it will send the fallback version. Cool. So once you've got your settings set up, you can now go to your emails and go and customize your second email. So you would go to the B version and you would make whichever changes you've decided to make. And then you can send those out. So you'll be able to track A/B tested emails. You'll be able to track how they've performed, and you'll be able to see the test results. So to improve the significance of this test, I would recommend increasing the amount of time. They suggest trying bolder changes, but you can also increase the time so that you can give the test a chance to run. And you can actually track this as it's going. So you don't just see this when the winner is announced, you can actually see the two emails next to each other as well. So when it gets to the end of whatever test duration it is, it'll send the rest of the emails out. The other thing that HubSpot has now introduced that wasn't previously available is you can now do A/B tested emails in a workflow. So as you create your automated email, you now have the ability to in an automated email, create an A/B test and then insert that into a workflow, which wasn't possible previously, which is really exciting from a nurturing perspective. If you're building nurturing emails, you can now make those A/B tests as well to improve the conversion rate, not only of your, regular emails that you send off once, but from your workflows so that you can improve the conversion rate over time. So the things that you could test for email open rates could be the number of emails you send to a list. So testing in terms of how many emails you're sending to people over a period of time, subject line, preview text, as mentioned earlier, who you're sending the email from. You can also, from a click rate perspective, test the body copy, the design, so like the layouts, the colors, that kind of thing, the images themselves, the call to action, the email signature, even the layout in terms of which copy you put in which order. So if you change the order of the images, the copy, the design, all of those can be used to test for click-through rates. So in terms of the number of things that are really easy to execute, an email A/B test is really quick and easy to actually execute. Cool. In terms of A/B testing on landing pages, just like on emails, it's not a one and done approach. Every test you run builds upon the test that came before it. A negative result gives you a better idea of what doesn't work and what not to do and what not to try, or how you should maybe tweak your approach. So just thinking about testing the kinds of images that work, the kinds of call to actions, the content. You can make iterative changes to your pages and see them improve conversion rates and change the content over time. What A/B testing allows you to do is focus on data-driven analysis rather than playing a guessing game. So how do you run a test in a marketing email or on a landing page? Well, you're going to start with the goal. If you're testing just to test, you won't discover results that give you actionable steps to help you improve. So you got to start with the goal. What are you trying to achieve? What do you want to learn? What do you want to find out? When you set the goal for your team, for your test, your email test, you're preparing to design a test that can be statistically significant. You don't want to be testing things that are insignificant, like whether a 550 pixel image is better than a 600 pixel width image. That would be a ridiculous waste of your ability to test and of your time. Then you're going to, just like with smart content, evaluate the group of recipients that you're sending to. So who are you sending it to? So you've designed your test. Now, who are your test subjects, basically? Who are you going to test this out on? While testing marketing emails consistently will help you improve over time, doing something just to do it is not going to give you valuable results. So if you're going through rebranding and you want to test different colors and logos, make sure you have a purpose before you run that test and know who you're going to talk to. Once you know you're going to talk to, who you're going to talk to, what you're trying to test, you're going to design that test. The design will relate to the goal that you built in. So your goal is tied to the content, the purpose, or the outcome you're producing. When you set your goal, one of the things you should keep in mind is, what are you trying to improve? There's no point in knowing that your open rates are low and wanting to improve open rates, but running a test on click-through rates, because your goal and your required outcome and the thing you need to test and want to understand are not linked to each other. So your test needs to link to what you need to know and where you want to improve and what your goal's about. So now that you've figured out what you need to improve, you need to figure out ways to try and improve them. So when it comes to email subject lines, I have a tool that I like to use. So this is a tool that you can use. So you can take your subject line and say, put in some alternative subject lines. So what is an A/B test? And then I can score my subject line and see what score it gets out of 100. Now I can say everything you need to know about A/B tests. And see, is that going to be better or worse? Okay, so what is an A/B test is a far more effective slightly more effective subject line. So I can build out a couple of examples and then take the best two examples from this subject line tester potentially, and then run them in an A/B test. Because just because this software says this is the best headline doesn't mean that that's true for your audience and the segment you're actually working with. Because while this is a best practice tool, your audience and your persona and their actual preferences are more important than best practice. So when you're coming up with examples and building your experiments, be creative, but keep your ideas within the bounds of reality. You want to explore tests that will give you long-term business results and are going to be significant and help you move towards improving the campaign. So let's look at an example. So When setting the purpose of your test, you identified that your newsletter emails are not getting the open rates you'd like, and you want to find a solution by running to see a test to see how you can improve them. The goal was to improve newsletter open rates from 11 to 15% during the business quarter. So setting a SMART goal. Your hypothesis is that the subject line contains characters and words that are triggering the recipient's spam filters. Okay, so you design a test to adjust the subject line to avoid exclamation marks, percentage signs, and remove salesy words like free and discount. And you want to aim to closely align your subject line with what the email contains. So those are all best practices that you would think, those are all good things that you shouldn't, well, those things are bad things. You should probably avoid doing things like that. Well, you're running a test to apply if those best practices improve your open rates or not. So another hypothesis and solution for low open rates is you send too many emails, so your contacts are less compelled to open them. That's a completely different test around seeing if you send less emails. So designing a test to reduce your email frequency for a month and observe if email rates open or improve. Now, that's not a test you could run using the A/B testing tool, for example, but it's still a test that would help improve conversion rates potentially. This is how you can tie your goal to the design of your test and start to measure and improve. So not every test that you run in terms of doing better campaigns is necessarily linked to the A/B testing tool. So the kind of results, and I think I showed you an example of these kind of results already, and this is when you actually have a winner and you see a significant difference in the two emails, and it's statistically significant rather than significant, because you might say 21 and 23 or 24 aren't that different, but statistically significant depending on the number of people you sent it out. And thankfully, HubSpot does all that fun math stuff. So we just get to look at it and it tells us whether it's statistically significant or not. And then finally, you're going to review and start your test. So deciding how long you want to run your test for, there isn't a magic number. I like 24 hours because of the logic behind it. It gives you a full day and it sends out the same time of day. So it removes a variable of the time from your test. But your tests may need to run for longer, and you may need to give people longer depending on your audience. If your audience are opening emails up to 4 days after then email send, you may want to give longer period of time for that test. So it's up to you to look at your audience, understand your audience to be able to come up with that. And then the time at the end of the time frame from an email perspective that you've set, it will then send out your next the winning email. From a landing page perspective, HubSpot has 2 ways of doing it. And we'll talk about that in a second. So to decide on your time frame, you can look at past performance. You want to look at how long it takes for people to open and kind of gauge how long people are opening that email for before you should, can declare a winner or not. And one of the most common mistakes people make is ending the test too soon. So they don't get enough statistically significant data. And so the A/B test you're running may not be able to gather enough data to declare a real winner before you close the test. So maybe look at different sends, increasing the time, trying different things. Be playful in your approach to testing.